Imagine standing in a room packed with family, your own father laughing loudly, mocking you, telling everyone you were a failure who would walk away with nothing. You stand silent, heart pounding, but not because you're broken, because you know something they don't. Then, the lawyer opens the will, clears his throat, and what he reads flips the entire room upside down. In a matter of seconds, all their laughter turns to stunned silence. And you realize sometimes the best revenge is letting the truth speak for itself. They called me the family failure for 15 years, until the day they stepped onto my private jet and realized I was a billionaire, subscribed for more stories where the underestimated rise, and the tables finally turned the invitation to the annual Thompson family barbecue sat unopened on my marble kitchen counter, the bold red script catching the glow of the Arizona sunrise through my glass walls after 15 years of silence, distance, and deliberate invisibility was all about to unravel. And not because I wanted it to, I glanced at my phone, rereading the headline that changed everything. Forbes 30 under 40, Leah Thompson's virtual design empire valued at $4. B, 100 million. The article drops tomorrow, 2 days before the reunion. So much for staying under the radar, Thompson. My assistant voice came through the intercom. Your brother Chris is on line 1 again, of course. He'd been calling ever since the media blast hit. I sighed and picked up. Hi, Chris. What the hell, Leah? He barked. Just got off the phone with CNBC. CNBC? They asked me how it feels to be the brother of a billionaire. You want to explain something to me? I stared out at the desert skyline from my Scottsdale penthouse. Guess you'll find out with everyone else cut. The crap, his voice sharpened. You let us believe you were broke for years. Mom thought you were couch surfing. Worried, were they? I said, half laughing. You mean all those lectures about how I was throwing away my future, the sarcasm, the helpful suggestions? To go work for Uncle Mark's insurance agency. They were just trying to help. No, they were trying to mold me, and you let them silence. Chris, the golden child, Harvard MBA, joined Dad's accounting firm at 23, never questioned anything. How long, he finally asked. I walked over to the balcony, watching one of my 3 Teslas pull into the driveway below. Remember when I moved into that rundown apartment near Tempe? Chris paused. Yeah. When you started that 3D art stuff, that was 15 years ago. You didn't say anything else, and he didn't have to. That's right, I said aloud to no one, smirking. Everyone thought I was insane for tossing aside a finance degree to play with graphics, as Dad used to say. But what none of you knew was that I'd already sold my first VR sculpture collection for $660. $60,000 back then. Chris had sounded stunned earlier. Yep, and 6 months later, I sold another batch for $200,000 by the time Dad was announcing over Christmas dinner that I was just figuring things out. I had already passed the $1 million dual mark. I could picture Chris now, eyes squinting, doing the math. But you still borrowed money from Mom and Dad for rent. You drove that beat-up Civic until last year. I actually laughed. I never borrowed money, Chris. I asked them to invest in me and my company. They refused loudly, and that Civic a choice, just like this Scottsdale penthouse and the Gulfstream G700 parked at a private hangar downtown. Private jet, he had whispered, voice cracking. How rich are you exactly? I could hear the disbelief cracking through his carefully composed tone. I thought back to all those dinners where I was the invisible one, the sweet but broke sibling, our youngest. Tessa used to theatrically cover the bill, sighing about how tough things must be for me. Forbes will print $7.2 billion, I said, but that's modest. The real figure is closer to 10. The sound Chris made was somewhere between a gasp and a small scream. I've got to jump into a board meeting, I added casually. See you at the reunion. Click. I turned toward the intercom. Samantha, is everything ready? Yes, Miss Thompson, she said. Jet is fueled Rolls-Royce. Fleet is scheduled to pick up each family member. The venue has been secured. Private island confirmed, and all NDAs are signed. Perfect. I picked up the reunion invitation again. For 15 years I'd let them box me in the weird one, the dreamer, the financial disappointment. But this time they'd see the real me. My phone buzzed. Tessa, oh my God, Leah, this Forbes thing, tell me it's a prank. What is going on? I smiled and left her on read. Funny how the quiet ones always surprise them. Tessa, who loved to brag about how she made it in corporate America while her artsy older sister was still finding herself, The intercom buzzed. Again, Miss Thompson, both your parents are on the line. I didn't miss a beat, tell them. I'm in a meeting. I glanced at my CT watch, and Samantha called the hellhead. I think I'll take the chopper to the board meeting today as I gathered my things tablet. Sunglasses notes for the next pitch deck. My mind drifted back to the day everything changed, the day I decided to keep my success a secret 15 years earlier. 3D design isn't real art, Leah. Dad had scoffed across the dinner table in this crypto art. Think he had his eyes narrowed. It's a scam. No one in their right mind is going to pay for computer generated nonsense. I was 22, fresh out of Wharton, sitting at Sunday dinner in my parents' Phoenix estate trying to explain a vision they didn't want. To hear they hadn't paid for an Ivy League education so I could play with pixels, actually, Dad. I just sold my first collection for enough, he snapped. Cutting me off, you either come work at the firm like we planned, or you're on your own, no support. No safety net, just a cold cutoff. My mother gave me her trademarked patronizing smile, reaching across the table to pat my hand. Honey, we're just worried you need structure, something stable, a real career. I looked around the table, Dad's stern glare, Mom's polite pity, Chris's silence, and Tessa's smirk. That was the moment I didn't tell them about the $50. Zero I'd already made, or the 3 immersive galleries courting me, or the venture capital firms emailing me daily. You're right, I said, standing. I'll figure it out on my own. 2 weeks later, I moved into a shoebox studio in Tempe. They assumed I was broke, too stubborn to ask for help, but I was quietly building a digital empire. Year 1, brutal 18-hour days, code art, networking, sleepless ambition. My first major collection, Neon Syntax, sold out in 6 hours. Total earnings, $1. 200,000. I reinvested every cent hired. Engineers built platforms, revolutionized what digital ownership meant. But every time I visited home, same civic faded jeans, quiet smile, let me help with rent, Mom would say. No thanks, I'd reply. I'm doing just fine, and I was more than fine. By the end of that first year, my network had crossed $10 million. By year 3, I'd quietly pee $100 million. But to my family, I was still just Leah, the idealistic sister who wasted her potential. Now, 15 years later, as I stepped into my private helicopter on the roof of my Scottsdale building, I thought about how the little white lie had grown into a billion-dollar secret, and in 2 days, everything would change. My phone buzzed again. A text from Dad, we need to talk. I smirked and turned off the phone. He'd have to wait. After 15 years of condescending comments and backhanded concern, they were finally about to learn the truth. And I was going to make sure they never forgot it. The Forbes article dropped at exactly 6 a.m. Saint, I was already up, black coffee in hand, laptop open in my sleek home office, a wall of monitors lighting up with chaos in real-time digital art disruptor. How Leah Thompson quietly built a $10 billion empire. Right under the headline, a photo I personally approved, me in front of my best-selling VR gallery wearing a custom couture outfit worth more than Tessa's annual salary. The article didn't just reveal my wealth, it mapped out the empire I'd built in silence, the tech platforms, the partnerships, the auctions, the investors. My phone erupted. Tessa? Wait, is this real $10? Be Chris? I told you something was up yesterday, Mom. Leah, sweetheart, please call me Dad. This has to be a mistake. A misprint, Aunt Lee. Is our Leah the Leah Thompson? I muted the chat and checked my inbox. Dozens of interview requests, investment pitches, TED Talk invites, but one email stood out from my dad's longtime business partner, Martin Delgado. Leah, I believe there may be strategic value in exploring synergies between Thompson Interactive and Delgado Capital. I understand your father may have had past reservations, but I assure you we open to evolving. I actually laughed out loud 3 years ago. I pitched them a collaboration. Martin looked me dead in the eye and said, "We don't gamble on internet gimmicks." My intercom buzzed. "Miss Thompson, your mother is in the lobby. She's quite an assistant." I pulled up the security feed there. She was Elaine Thompson, impeccable as ever, in her tailored Chanel. Arguing with security like her life depended on it. Let her up. I sighed, time to face the first ripple of the storm, overlooking the Arizona mountains, sunlight pouring through glass walls, and a Keith Haring original hanging behind me worth more than my parents' entire house. Leah, my mother whispered, her voice shaking as she stepped fully into the penthouse. What is all this? This is my real home, Mom," I said calmly, handing her a steaming cup of coffee, not the modest little condo I keep. For family drop-ins, she wandered toward the floor-to-ceiling windows, her heels echoing against polished marble floors. But how long have you been living like this? 15 years, I replied, leaning on the kitchen island. Since the night you and Dad said digital art was a phase, something no one would ever take seriously. She turned slowly, her perfectly done-up face now clouded with confusion and something else I couldn't quite place. But we saw you struggling. The tiny apartment, that old Civic, asking for rent help. I gave a dry smile. I never asked for rent help. I asked you both to invest in my company. There's a difference. And the apartment, the car are all part of the illusion. I played the role you believed. The broke dreamer, the lost one that was the only version of me you ever accepted. Her lips parted in disbelief. You lied to us, Leah, for 15 years. No, I said quietly. I just didn't correct the story you all chose to believe. You were so sure I was failing. You never looked deeper. She sank slowly into one of my custom leather chairs, her posture collapsing for the first time in years. She looked her age. Does anyone else know? Just Chris, I said. He found out when the press release went out, I think. He tried to warn you. She nodded. He called your father, said it must be a mistake, some other Leah Thompson. I walked to my desk and handed her a folder. Here's the proposal. I gave Dad 3 years ago. If he'd invested the $1 million I asked for his share, would be worth over $100 million today. Her hands trembled. He said, "You were looking for a handout," she whispered, "that your art had failed and you believed him." She didn't answer. Did any of you ever come to one of my exhibits? Google my name. Nothing. I turned back to the window, watching the city buzz below. The family reunion's still on, by the way, but I changed the location. I bought out the entire resort to public. Everyone will be picked up by Rolls-Royces flown on my jet, and we'll be celebrating. On my private island, your island, my mother, echoed her voice barely above a whisper in the Caribbean. I said casually, I bought it last year after closing my first billion dual deal. I turned to face her fully, and Mom, this time, I won't be the quiet one sitting through dinner while everyone lists their promotions and new real estate deals. I've got some things to say, too. She stood up slowly, smoothing her silk skirt with trembling. And your father win, and he sees all of this. Her voice faltered. He'll have no choice but to admit it, that his daughter, his artist PH daughter, built something bigger than anything in the Thompson legacy. I smiled gently, and Mom, that's just the beginning. I walked her to the elevator, pausing just before the doors opened. Oh, and one more thing, remember that Bentley you've always wanted? The one Dad says is too impractical. She looked at me puzzled. I bought 3 of them last month, I said, with a shrug, just because I could. The door slid closed on her stunned expression. As soon as she was gone, I hit the intercom. Samantha, is everything in place for the reunion? Yes, Miss Thompson, she replied smoothly. Island staff are fully briefed. Each guest will receive a personalized folder documenting every investment offer they declined over the years, along with current valuations. The video timeline of your achievements is finalized and queued for the welcome dinner. Excellent. I picked up my phone, opened the family group chat, and typed a single message: looking forward to seeing everyone at the reunion. Dress appropriately for a private island. Transportation will be provided. Then I refreshed the stock dashboard on my laptop. My company's value had surged since the Forbes article hit another billion added to my net worth before sunrise. I thought of my father, probably in his office right now, trying to process how the daughter he dismissed had quietly become one of the wealthiest women in America. I thought of Tessa still bragging about her 6-figure salary in Hampton's beach house, blissfully unaware I could buy her entire life with a week's interest. This reunion, it was going to be unforgettable. My phone buzzed again. A message from Dad. We need to talk before the reunion. Some things are better discussed privately. I typed back, everything will be discussed at the reunion. Dad, isn't that what reunions are for, sharing our accomplishments? Then I called Samantha once more. Have the design team repaint the helipad. Make sure my name is clearly visible from the air. It's already done, Miss Thompson. Anything else? Samantha asked over the line. I paused, thinking of 15 years of pity, mockery, and being branded the family disappointment. Yes, have the Forbes article framed and hung in every room. On the island, I want it to be the first thing they see, no matter where they turn. As I ended the call, I caught my reflection in the glass, calm, confident, wealthy. beyond imagination, and finally ready to show them all who I really was. The countdown was over. The morning of the Thompson family reunion arrived clear and bright. I stood on the private runway of my Scottsdale airfield watching as 3 black Rolls-Royces pulled in one after another. They had arrived. The doors opened. First came my father, still upright, still sharp-eyed, but his confidence dimmed. My mother followed, more subdued than usual after our conversation days earlier. Chris, Tessa, and a wave of aunts, uncles, and cousins trailed behind, their faces full of disbelief and veiled judgment, and there waiting for them in the center of it all sat my jet-sleek, white, gleaming Thompson Interactive, emblazoned in brush silver along the fuselage. "Welcome, everyone," I said, letting my voice carry hope. The ride was comfortable. "Leah," my father said, stepping forward, trying to reclaim his usual authority. "This is a bit much. The resort would have been just fine." I smiled. The resort was to public, Dad. This reunion needed to be more meaningful on my island. "You're what?" Tessa muttered, clutching her Dior bag. "Of course. You have an island," as they boarded the jet. I watched their eyes shift, soaking in the gold-trimmed interior, the original artwork, the D. Pan and crystal flutes. "Is that a real Picasso, Aunt?" Lo whispered. "Yes," I replied. "Picked it up last year." My father cleared his throat. "Leah, maybe we should talk." "We will when we land. Until then, enjoy the champagne," said, tilting my glass. "It costs more than your company made last quarter." He flinched. "Perf." 2 hours later, we descended toward a glittering jewel in the ocean, my 300-acre private island with a luxury resort nestled at its heart. Let the reunion begin, and there it was, visible from the sky, exactly as planned. My name, Leah Thompson, spelled out in letters so large and bold they could practically be seen from orbit, so high. "What?" Tessa gasped, misreading the name at first, then her jaw dropped as we landed. I heard her whisper. Of course, she branded the helipad surrounding it were massive digital screens, each cycling through my most successful immersive art collections. The sale prices were prominently displayed: $2. 30 meters, $670, $11.50 million each. One a statement in itself. "Welcome to Thompson Island," I said, stepping onto the tarmac. My own little slice of paradise. Little Chris muttered, eyes wide. The resort complex that stood before them was a seamless blend of futuristic architecture and untouched Caribbean beauty. "Everyone's rooms are ready," continued. "There's some reading material waiting in each suite. Suggest you review it before dinner." The reading material was customized for Dad, a printed timeline of every deal he declined, each missed opportunity annotated with present-day valuations. For Tessa, a comparison of her entire annual salary versus what I earn in interest per day. For Chris, an internal audit showing how much his firm lost by turning down a collaboration with my platform. I gave them an hour to settle in. Then I summoned them to the main dining hall, a glass-walled space overlooking turquoise waves. The long tables sparkled with crystal silver and place settings worth more than most cars, and on every wall the Forbes article framed backlit, impossible to ignore. They entered slowly, all pretense of confidence fading, even their designer outfits looked oddly out of place here. "Please have a seat," I said warmly. "We have quite a bit to talk about." "Leah," Dad began, attempting diplomacy, "I think I speak for all of us when I say we're surprised." "Surprised," I repeated with a soft laugh. "Not angry that I kept this from you. Not disappointed I didn't share the truth. Just surprised we didn't know." Mom murmured. "No, you didn't want to know." I corrected her every time I tried to talk about my work. "You changed the subject every time I offered you a seat at the table. You dismissed me." "But the apartment," Tessa said, voice small. "The Civic. The times I picked up the check because you thought I was broke." I finished for her. "Did you enjoy that, Tessa, being the successful sister, the savior?" She looked down, cheeks flushed. At least she had the decency to look ashamed. "Let me show you something," I said calmly, pressing a discret button on the side of the dining table. Motorized panels opened overhead, and high-resolution screens descended. A timeline appeared, opposing milestones in my journey, with the words they'd used to dismiss me. 2010, "This 3D art thing is a waste of your degree, Dad." Result: my first digital sculpture collection sells for $50,000. 2012. "Leah, you need a stable career." Mom: result: company valuation hits $15 million. 2015. "At least one of us is doing well, Tessa." Result: I close a $120 million partnership with a major tech firm. 2018 Cryptort sounds like a scam, Chris. Result, my platform crosses 500,000 users and $600 million in sales to 2022. We don't fund online gimmicks. Dad's firm result company valuation surpasses $3 billion every single comment every time you looked at me like I was chasing a fantasy, I said, my voice steady. Remembered all of it, and I used it. My father swallowed, followed hard. Why didn't you tell us? Because you never wanted to hear it. Said you needed to learn that success doesn't wear suit, it doesn't follow your playbook, and sometimes the person you underestimate changes everything. I walked to the edge of the room, glass walls framing endless turquoise water. The hardest part wasn't keeping secrets, it was watching you all celebrate each other while I was building something you couldn't see. Mediocrity. Marcus said through gritted teeth. Yes, I said, you played it safe. That was your ceiling, mine was higher. I turned to Tessa. You flaunted your 6-fig salary like it was gold. Made that during a coffee break. Dad stood. Enough, we were wrong. Okay, no, I said firmly. I don't want an apology. I want you to understand. I pressed another button. The screens shifted, revealing the prototype of my latest creation. This launches next month. A redefinition of how art is created, owned, and valued. Is estimated worth $10 billion. I've looked at them all this time. You'll see it happen with your own eyes. No more doubting. The room fell into a deep silence, the kind that only comes when illusions finally collapse. My family sat frozen, absorbing the reality they had ignored for so long. Finally, my mother spoke. We're proud of you. Leah, we should have been proud all along. Thank you, Mom, I said gently, but I didn't do this for your pride. I did it because it was my dream, my vision. I looked around at the opulence they now couldn't deny, and now it's my empire. So what happens now? Chris asked quietly. Now, I echoed, pouring myself a glass of wine. Now we have dinner as a family, but this time we'll do it my way. No more tending, no more hiding. I raised my glass to the truth. Finally, one by one, they lifted their glasses. The shock hadn't fully worn off, but something was shifting. The rest of the evening passed in a haze of Michelin-level cuisine, aged wine, and hesitant but warming conversation for the first time in 15 years. They weren't just seeing me, they were really seeing me when they finally retired to their suites. I stayed behind, watching moonlight dance across the waves. Samantha appeared beside me, her voice soft. Was it worth it? I thought back to the timeline, their stunned expressions, the pride they never used to show. Yes, said, but not for the reasons I thought. It wasn't about proving them wrong anymore. It was about finally being free, fully myself. I smiled, and tomorrow we show them the future, their world of mutual funds. Corporate ladders and conservative choices was fading the world I'd built. Interactive, immersive, transformative was just beginning. Later that night, I found a note slipped under my door, my father's handwriting. I was wrong, not just about your business, about everything. You didn't just succeed, you changed the game. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner, Dad. I placed it in a frame beside the receipt for my first digital sale, $50,000, a reminder of where it began. The next morning as my family gathered for breakfast, attitude softened, curiosity blooming. I realized something profound. Success isn't just about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right, and sometimes the sweetest victory isn't loud, it's in quietly knowing you built something extraordinary while the world was busy doubting you. My phone buzzed, breaking. Thomson Interactive announces revolutionary new platform. The future had arrived, and this time they'd be watching it unfold. No more hiding, no more pretending, just success on my terms. If you've heard my story, I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you would do if you were in my shoes. Would you keep going, even when your family didn't believe in you? Would you stay silent, or make the world listen when the time is right? Your support means more than you think. Share this video if you believe in second chances and building something powerful even when no one is watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Because this isn't just my story, it's for anyone who's ever been doubted, dismissed, or underestimated. And if you're chasing a dream, right now, keep going, people. May laugh, they may doubt you, they may call you crazy. Let them let their doubts fuel your drive, build quietly, grow, and when the time comes, let the results speak for themselves. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your vision, but someday, you owe it to yourself to prove you were right all along, because success, it's not about shouting the loudest, it's about being undeniable. Now tell me below, what dream are you unwilling to let go of? There are moments that stay frozen in your memory forever, because they broke you, but because they revealed your true strength. As I stood there, surrounded by family members who watched and laughed alongside my father, I could have crumbled under the weight of humiliation. Instead, I chose to stay silent, holding on to the truth that none of them could see. For years, I had been underestimated, ridiculed, treated as if I was invisible. When the lawyer finally spoke, the room grew heavy with tension. Every word he read out chipped away at the arrogance and pride that filled the air minutes earlier. My father, so confident and so sure, started to shift uncomfortably in his seat. The smirks faded from the faces of my so-called family. As the final words echoed in the grand hall, naming me as the rightful heir, the silence was deafening. I didn't need to scream or argue. I didn't need to throw their insults back at them. My success, my patience, and my resilience spoke louder than anything I could have said. In that moment, I realized true strength isn't about fighting every battle. It's about knowing which ones are worth your silence. It's about standing tall, even when those you love try to tear you down. That day wasn't just about inheritance. It was about reclaiming my worth. It was about showing that no matter how many people doubt you, you have the final say over your destiny. Their laughter didn't define Meetha, truth did. Their betrayal didn't break Meeth built Meeth. So if you ever find yourself in a room full of doubters, remember, you don't have to convince anyone of your worth. Let your success do the talking. Let the truth unfold in its time. And when it does, you'll realize that silence, when backed by undeniable truth, is the loudest roar of all. Stay strong. Stay patient. Your moment will come, and when it does, the world won't just hear youth, they'll never forget you.